Can y'all hear me on Zoom? All right. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 5th Queen City Toastmasters meeting. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and guests who are joining us tonight. We've got a number of guests in person, which is fantastic. I am Jamie Richardson. I'm the Sergeant at Arms, and I call this meeting to order. October 5th, 1962 was the very first James Bond movie premiered, Dr. No. This Friday, this coming Friday, 3 days from now, the 25th James Bond movie will premiere with Daniel Craig called No Time to Die. So obviously they've dramatically become more original in their movie title names. Over that 60-year time frame, the James Bond series has generated almost $7 billion in box office gross. That is 5th all time. And so I'd like to see, does anyone know who the top 4 franchises of all time are? Yeah. Number 1. Other guesses? Which one? Spider-Man, I'll give it to you.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, number 3. Star Wars, number 2. Very good. So there you go. In good company, the James Bond films are. All right, with that, I would like to turn it over to our president, David Jones, to preside over the meeting.
All right. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. And we have a lot of guests here tonight, and I appreciate it. And I think we even have some online. And you're here at the #1 club in the area. Now, I don't say that to just toot our own horns, because a lot of people go, we're #1. Clemson likes to say they're #1, but there can only be one #1, which is Alabama. And same with Queen City. You might not like Alabama, but the facts are they're #1, no matter what your team is. And same with Queen City. And we're not #1 in Charlotte. We're #1 in our district, and we're in District 37. And there's 108 clubs in our district. And out of all the clubs, we have the highest number of members. And then there's a thing called the distinguished clubs, and it's goals that we have to do as club members and as speakers and members here. And right now we're the only club that's at 6 goals, 6 out of 9 to become presidential within 3 months. So we are #1 club right now. So that's where you're at. So if you're thinking of joining, why not join #1 instead of Clemson? So anyways, I want to welcome everybody. We have quite a few guests here that I'd like to go out and talk to. And I don't know if you guys can hear me, because I was saying use the mic. But I'm going to start with, let me see, some of our guests. I'm going to go out to them, and usually we like the guests to come up here and say hello, but I'm going to go out to you because we have a lot of them. I'm going to start with, I believe, Jeff. Is that you? Just wanted to know how you heard about Toastmasters and what you hope to get out of it.
I am a student at UNC Charlotte, and my professor is a huge fan of Toastmasters, and she recommended us to go to a meeting if we wanted to help improve our public speaking, which is something I'm trying to work on. And so I'm here to kind of just learn and also just to experience the club.
Perfect. I think we get like 1 member from UNC once their professor tells them to come out. And then last week we had Brittany online, but if you want to say hello again and how you heard about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany. I can't actually remember where I initially heard about Toastmasters. I've been thinking about joining for a long time now, and I'm finally pulling the trigger. So I can't actually remember, but I will mention I am a Clemson Tiger fan. So your words cut pretty deep here.
Sorry about that. All right, and Connor, you're his first timer?
Yep. I found about Toastmasters on YouTube. I was looking up how to become a better public speaker, and also want to be a better storyteller. So I'm here today.
Perfect. And did you watch like one of our hybrid meetings on YouTube? Is that what you saw, or?
I watched a little bit. I think it was the last one.
Okay.
So I kind of have a general idea of
Right, how it works. Perfect. Then over here we have Vincent, Jada, and Jalen. Awesome. I'm going to go with your Jada. I think I didn't see your name there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jada Sifford. I am a part of the Ballot Club in District 37. So this is my first time visiting you all here in Charlotte. I am native, and I'm invited here through Vincent.
And they're over here. Okay. So I'll start with Vincent. How'd you hear about, are you also a member of Valentine or no?
So Jada told me about Toastmasters in general. And I'm looking to become a better speaker for my career. and presentation skills. So that's what made me come tonight.
Perfect. And Jalen, how'd you hear about us, I guess? Together? Perfect. All right. Any other guests? I think that was it. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead. Yeah. Applaud all the new guests and everybody. Oh, I think we have somebody online. Colin, is this your first time with Toastmasters? How'd you hear about us?
It is. First and foremost, apologies for the poor lighting. I think it's only going to get worse as the sun goes down, so I'll work on that for next time. Found out about Queen City Toastmasters online. There's some great reviews. Actually work with Vanessa as well. We spoke about it briefly today, and she said great things. So very happy to be here and just looking to improve public speaking, but also rediscover my love and enjoyment of kind of speaking in front of people. I feel like that's something I've lost in recent years, and hopefully I can get some of that back.
Perfect. And our recurring guest, who is a member of a club, I'm a member of 3 different clubs because the more you speak, the better you get. And I'm a member of AM Lockport on Thursday mornings out in New York. And Eric is the immediate past president. Just want to say hello, Eric, who's driving.
Hello.
Thanks for
How you
joining us.
doing?
Good, good. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead. We have a big night tonight. John is going to be our Toastmaster for the night. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John and let him get the meeting started.
All right, all right, all right. Good evening, Queen City. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and all the wonderful guests we have here, both here at the Vine and online. I'm super excited about tonight. We have 2 great speakers, great lineup. We've got some new members filling roles for the first time. Exciting stuff. Now, what makes tonight particularly special is that we have 2 icebreaker speeches tonight. For all you guests, the icebreaker is the first. And what do we know about any first? First time you go skydiving, the first time you go ice skating, sometimes it can be a little daunting, right? Well, I can tell you that I recall my first icebreaker. And of course, you got the nerves and the jitters. And let's face it, I had my share of blunders. But I'll tell you what, when you finish your first icebreaker, it is awesome. It's such an empowering feeling. I know that our speakers are going to enjoy that reward tonight, as will any of you who decide to take upon this challenge. Now, I feel it's only fitting that tonight that my theme is risk and reward. How do you use risk and reward in your own decision-making? We're going to talk about that through the course of the evening. I'm going to keep referring to it. Now, anyone who knows me knows I like self-help books. And Tim Ferriss, he wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. And in the 4-Hour Work Week, he discusses the concept of risk and reward. He says all decisions you make, no matter how mundane or life important decisions you make, that you have a scale. You have, let's say you have a risk of 1 to 10, and then you have a reward scale from 1 to 10. Whichever one of those measures is greater, that's the decision you're going to make. If you have a risk that is a 2 and a reward that is a 10, guess what? You're going to proceed. And if your risk is an 8 and your reward is a 2, not happening. Let me give you a few examples. You woke up this morning, the alarm went off for maybe the 3rd time. You're contemplating, do I hit the snooze button? You value your sleep. You're like, I could use another 10 minutes. Let's give that a 4 on the scale of the reward scale. But what about the risk? Your boss saw you walk in a little bit late, too many times this month. If he or she catches you again, maybe you get a bad review, or worse, you get fired. Let's call that a 7 risk. You got a 4 reward and a 7 risk. Guess what? You're getting your butt up and you're going to work. Would someone else maybe have a different scale? Maybe they think their risk is a 2 if they lose their job. I don't care if I lose my job. I was out late last night. I need my sleep. Sleep is a 10, totally different outcome. So depending on who the person is will define what happens, how they measure risk and reward matters. Let me give you another really life-changing risk reward example for me. Something that I applied risk reward and it worked in my favor. 13 years ago, I walked into a charitable event I went with my colleagues. I was single at the time. And I see this woman from across the room. She was the most stunning woman I had ever seen. I could not keep my eyes off of her. It was like a laser beam. I couldn't talk, nothing. Well, the risk reward process started going on. You single guys, you know this. What's the worst she could say? No? Well, we know that's not true. The worst she can say is, get away from me, you loser. So let's call that a 7 on the risk scale, right? But what about the reward? What if I approach this woman, she gives me her phone number, I develop a meaningful relationship, and I find out that she's not only beautiful on the outside, but she's beautiful on the inside. That's a 10. I'm going for it. And I did. So I walked up to her, said, excuse me, I'd like to make a donation this evening, but I seem to have forgotten my wallet. How might I contact you in the future to make a donation? She paused. I smiled real big when I did that. She goes, well, I guess I'd have to give you my phone number. I said, all right, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now, let it be known that was my best and last pickup line of my single career. I've been happily married for 10 years. But was there another guy in the room that was thinking the same thing? Maybe their risk reward balance was different. Maybe they were feared rejection and their risk was a 10. I'm thankful they didn't. The point is that everyone's risk reward scale is different and it will impact the decisions you make. I'm going to touch upon this concept a few times through the course of the meeting. Now, tonight, I'm not all up here by myself. I've got fellow Toastmasters that are going to help me in this journey. To start, I'm going to introduce our grammarian serving in the role as grammarian to watch our filler words. Please let me introduce Toastmaster Lon.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests. My name is Lon once again, and I am the grammarian for tonight. And as a grammarian, I have 2 responsibilities. The first one is to introduce the word of the day. Now, I wasn't sure if I was to pick a word that would kind of correlates to tonight's theme, or just kind of choose a word from the PowerPoint that I pulled up from the Queen City Toastmasters website. But I did pick a word for tonight, and I actually have it on the screen. And the word of the night is paean, and it means a joyous songs of praise, triumphs, or thanksgiving, and expressions of praise or joy. And to put it in a sentence is, after losing the game, the team was disappointed not to sing their victory paean. I hope I pronounced it right. And we do encourage you guys, or everyone here, including the guests, to use the word of the night. And my second responsibility is to make notes of filler words that is used and speak by anyone during this meeting. And filler words are such as and so, you know, and so forth. And by the end of this meeting, I'll let everyone know how they're doing. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Lon. And just so everyone here, make sure we understood, that was, is it paean? That's the word of the day. Okay, incorporate the word of the day in your speeches today and you'll get special kudos. The next role, time is important here at Queen City. We must respect other people's times in our speeches. We want to communicate effectively, but respect other people's times. Please help me introduce Toastmaster Julian, our timer for tonight.
Good evening, members and guests. My name is Julian, and I will be your timer this evening. It is my job to time all speeches, including prepared speeches, impromptu speeches, and also evaluations. When the speaker reaches the qualifying time, my background color will change to either green when you get to the qualifying time, like this, yellow when you are halfway through, and red when you reach the end time and you know that you have that 30-second grace period. And again, you'll have a 30-second grace period on the beginning and end of your speech, except for impromptu table topics, which you need to reach the 1-minute mark. And prepared speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes, and evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you, and back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Julian. And finally, I'd like to re-welcome to the stage our president and fellow Toastmaster, David Jones, to explain our role as Ballot Counter.
Thank you. We haven't done Ballot Counter in person yet, so we're going to start it tonight here in person. Those on Zoom can watch or maybe text me if they want to know. But for Zoom, how we do the Ballot Counter is you all have this on your table, and whenever they're going to have 2 speakers, 2 evaluators, and then multiple table topics people. So at the bottom, whoever your favorite is, you'll just write it on there. And then when that session is over, I'll come around and collect them. And at the end of the night, I'll announce who the winner is. At the top, if the speaker says something that interests you and you want to give them some feedback, you just fill it out here. I'll also pick that up, and I'll give it to the speakers, and that's how we do the Ballot Counter. But we haven't done it in a year and a half, so we'll see how it goes tonight. So back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster David Jones. Okay, before we kick it off to our main event, I'm going to give one more quick example about risk and reward that's very pertinent for us here at Toastmasters. And it was something one of our newest members mentioned during table topics last week. He talked about coming to Toastmasters for the first time, and like perhaps many of us, hesitated, sitting in the parking lot, staring at the door to the Vine, wondering if he should come in. What not a more perfect example of risk and reward? Let's face it, the elephant in the room is most people fear public speaking. They'd rather be dead than in this little spot right here. But something prompted this person to walk through the door. Was it the gratification of conquering one's fear? Was it the promise of improving, self-improving? I don't know. I wasn't there and I wasn't in his mind to know, but I can speculate. All I do know is that the reward outweighed the risk, and we're glad he did. Without further ado, let's start with our first icebreaker speech, giving his first speech in the mastery pathways, the presentation mastery. Please help me and give some props to our online participant, Jimmy Cruz. Jimmy.
Thank you. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Today, I'm looking to give you all a speech mainly about me. And this revolves around mottos or phrases. By a show of hands, how many people have heard or even lived by different phrases or mottos? All right, great, great. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard it and they kind of live by it, but for me, mine is, I am the product of my own destiny. Not something that's been out there a lot, circulating the web or anything like that. This is something that I even try to search for it myself, oddly enough, but my mother used to tell me this all the time. And I did not have a clue at all what that really meant. I had an idea. And I guess for me, the way I look at it, it means only you can control your life, how it turns out or ends up. So when I look at this phrase as it pertains to my life and the reason why I'm talking about it, I wanted to dissect this phrase, this motto, this thing that I tend to look at day in, day out as why my mother tried to instill this into me. And it has 2 key words, product and destiny. So we say, what is a product? A product is something you see on a shelf at a store, or it could be anything. But really it's a person as well, and it could be the result or an action or of a process. the way I view this is how the world views me. So I am the product. The destiny, in a lot of cases, people view that as just fate. So it's if your time's up, your time's up. My life's going to be how my life is going to be. But for me, again, I think that I can control that based on my actions, the way I view the world, the way I interact with people. And just to give a quick overview of all of this, I grew up in New York City in the early 80s, and it was tough. Just seeing a lot of different things happening around that I really didn't understand, some violence, a lot of people. Really, how am I going to make my way in this world that we live in, especially in this large city? And I grew up with my grandmother. My mother and father were both present in my life. Not just as present as I would like them. But unbeknownst to me, my mother was actually in the military as an enlistment. For 28 years, she was a cryptologic specialist. I had no clue, of course, what that was just growing up. You just want your parents around. And my dad was a very hard worker, had just a little bit of college education, and he went on to manage stores such as Montgomery Ward's and Home Depot's, and was divisional managers and things like that. Again, all unbeknownst to me, right? So I look at my life still on how do I become my own person, and how do I become successful, and how can I be where my parents are, and things like that. Both of them never actually finished college, but they both had the drive and determination to be the best that they could be. They both made sure they reached out to me. They both were very present in conversations and cards and set up visits, things of that nature, where they made sure that I felt the love. As I went through my teenage years, a lot of sports, a lot of activities, school was very present in the back of my mind, right? I loved to do the chase of women and trying to be the popular guy, all right? I wanted to be well-liked, and all of those things really didn't matter much because I was doing things that really didn't have a key present in my life to say, all right, where are we going here? Are we going to college? You got to go to college. Well, for me, okay, should I go to college? I think I can do college. And I put a lot of effort into that in my latter part of years. When I did that and had a refocus, I looked at my life, I looked at myself, I looked at the overall viewpoint, and I went to college. I finished up with a 4-year degree in accounting. I found the love of my life in college, now married for 10 years, have 2 beautiful children, boys. And I look at that motto and I say that destiny is just being resilient, refocusing, understanding of what I need to be and where I need to go in order to be the best person that my kids will now hear. That's going to be their slogan for me. And oddly enough, my wife, she does that same slogan or gives different types of slogans to them to empower them each day whenever they have bad days. So in closing, I want to show you all, as this is my icebreaker, a picture of my family, people that I view and near against my heart. And here they go. I'm not sure if you all can see them, but I tried. But these are they. So I want to say thank you. And I appreciate you all listening, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, Toastmaster Jimmy Cruz, wonderful job. You keep performing like that, and it perhaps be your destiny to be a finished product of a excellent communicator and speaker. Great job. Let's move on to our second icebreaker speech. also giving his first in the presentation mastery pathways. Please put your hands together and provide a warm welcome for Toastmaster Cameron.
Thank you, Toastmaster John, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Well, fall is officially here, and fall brings a lot of great things. First of all, it brings us a break from the summer heat. It brings the pretty colors of the leaves changing. It brings, when COVID's not running rampant, some fall festivals like Renaissance Festival and county fairs. And it also brings pumpkin spice flavored every damn thing. But my favorite thing about fall is football. Football season is what I live and breathe. I just can't get enough of it. And since I was 5 years old, I've been pulling for one team, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. And since they put a whooping on them Panthers this past Sunday, I thought this was the perfect time to tell you all that. I've seen the Cowboys play 4 times against the Carolina Panthers. My first game was right here in Charlotte. I got to see Tony Romo's first start. He put up 25 fourth quarter points to come back and beat the Panthers 35-14, October 20th, 2006, but who's counting? But one of my favorite Dallas Cowboys stories has nothing to do with a game. In 2013, I got an opportunity to go out to a corporate event in Dallas, Texas. It's an event that my corporate company hosts every year, and it moves around to a different big city every year. This particular year, it was in Dallas, Texas, and I got to go. First and only time I've got to go in my 11-year career. So the week lasts with the conference and the presentations and the gatherings and all that stuff. But the last night, the networking event was to get to go to the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So we walk in through the players' entrance. They had our footage on the big 60-yard TV as we're walking in. So we got to do that. We got to be on the field, eating and drinking, and we got to tour the locker room and the cheerleader locker room. And then the cheerleaders surprised us with a visit, and they came out and danced for us. And I'm 5 feet away from the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, America's sweetheart. I mean, how much better can it get for somebody like me, right? Well, then we got to take pictures with the cheerleaders. So I'm standing in line. I finally get up there and I'm hanging out. I got a cheerleader on each arm draped around me, you know, and I'm just smiling from ear to ear. Got to take pictures with the cheerleaders. And then they print us out a really nice laminated copy. They sign it to Cameron. Love the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. And then they give you your pictures. And I'm walking around showing everybody my pictures and all this stuff. And then my buddy from work somehow found a football and he's like, hey, you want to toss, play some catch? I'm like, play catch on the Dallas Cowboy field? Heck yeah, how cool is this? So we're out there pretending to be Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson running routes and falling down and making a fool of ourselves. Well, I had set my pictures down. I had a few drinks, and next thing you know, the bus comes to take us back to the hotel. I get on the bus, I'm halfway back and realize I left my pictures on the field. I was crushed. I just stood in line, took pictures with America's sweethearts, and left my pictures on the field. And all my coworker friends made fun of me for it too, just to make me feel better. Well, a couple weeks go by, I'm back in Charlotte, and I get to the office on a random Tuesday, and there's a manila envelope on my desk. And I open it up, and it's my pictures with a handwritten note from one of the cheerleaders that I took a picture with. The grounds crew found the pictures, recognized one of the cheerleaders in the pictures, and gave them to that cheerleader. She went to the booking agent, Gloria, who helped manage the company event. She looked up, and out of 3,000 people, I was the only Cameron because the pictures were made out and signed to Cameron. So she was like, must be him. So they mailed my pictures back with a handwritten note. So long story short, I got my pictures back with a handwritten note from a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader and a pretty cool story to tell. Toastmaster John.
Thank you, Toastmaster Cameron. I think we all know who's going to be perhaps the next Dallas Cowboy fan club president. Great job, both of you as icebreakers, Jimmy and Cameron. Doesn't it feel great? It's always great to accomplish your first step of anything. It deserves special kudos, congratulations. Toastmaster Julian, can I please have a timer's report?
Yes, so You guys did excellent with the time. Jimmy, you were at 6 minutes and 29 seconds. And Cameron, you were at 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So you both qualified.
All right, that means both of our icebreaker speakers have and should be eligible for voting. You have your ballots in front of you, and online are going to be able to vote, or are we going to keep it? We're going to have to be local only. I apologize to those on Zoom. We're going to have to keep it to those local. Well, listen, we're going to revisit the risk and reward concept and the framework we discussed. Hopefully all are convinced that you utilize risk and reward in your own daily decision making. But what if we redefine how you think about risk? Your perception is important in this case. Now I'm going to bring up something that's kind of a somber moment, but I think it proves my point. I had the fortunate enough experience to be around both of my parents when they passed from terminal cancer. And both of them discussed regrets in their lives as their remaining days were coming to an end. And what struck me is that they both spoke about things that they regretted not doing. They didn't regret the things that they did. They regretted the opportunities they didn't take. They regretted the opportunities, the talent that they didn't develop, the places they didn't go, the people they didn't meet. I don't know what your religious affiliations are. I don't know if any of you have heard this quote. This quote is very moving. It says, the true definition of hell is when in your last remaining days, the person you are right now meets the person you could have become. The person you are meets the person you could have become. Wow. You combine that with what I heard from my parents, and I'll tell you what, I redefine all of my risks into just one. The greatest risk of all is not trying. The greatest risk of all is wasted talent, wasted time. If you redefine all your risk into just that one risk, all the other risks become pretty darn small. And I guarantee you, it'll impact your life and the decisions you make. Now, if that doesn't inspire people to volunteer for Table Topics Master, I don't know what will. So to help lead us in the next impromptu portion of tonight's meeting, I'm going to turn it over to one of our newest members, Toastmaster Eric Laxer.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The only Dallas Cowboys football game I saw was the 1996 divisional playoffs here in Carolina. And I won't remind you, but the Cowboys did not win that game. So good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm Eric Laxer, and I'm going to be your Table Topics host for this evening. This is my first time standing up here before you, other than just answering a Table Topics question. So please be kind and gentle. So Table Topics is a fun and exciting part of our meetings. It provides all of our participants an opportunity to work on their impromptu speaking. And the format tonight will consist of each participant having 1 to 2 minutes to respond to one of our questions. And in keeping with the risk and reward theme this evening, our questions will be related to the risk and reward concept. The word of the day is, I think I got this right. Is it peon? A peon. Okay, I apologize for that. If you can use the word of the day during your responses, please do. I don't think I get credit for just having tried to use it and use it incorrectly. So do I have a volunteer for the first Table Topics question this evening? Yes, okay, come on up. Thank you. Can you tell me your name, please? Gabe. Okay. Gabe, here's your first question. What is an example of a risk you took in your life? Can you tell us how it turned out and if you would do it again?
Absolutely.
Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Risk reward is a very interesting topic, and I love how the Toastmaster today introduced it. I'm sorry, what was your? John, loved how he introduced it and couldn't agree more that it is about risk and reward. For me personally, it's been this past year. So I transitioned from a corporate role where it was, I guess what I would call the golden handcuffs, and have started my own financial planning firm. And this is something that was, I mean, when you look at conservative and then risk, I think starting your own business is probably a 7 or 8, like, especially when you have a family. So I'm also married. That adds a little bit more risk to the equation. And so for me personally, it was a huge risk, but I love what you said at the end where, hey, I didn't want to, I think what really pushed me over the edge was I didn't want to get to the end and say, hey, you know what? I wish I had actually just tried. And so I had positioned myself to actually succeed. And so I'm currently in the process. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Hopefully it's good. But for me, the key thing was, hey, you know what? I don't want to, look back 20 years from now and say, hey, man, I wish I had tried, and see other people that did try and succeed and say, hey, you know what? Well, that's too bad. So there you go. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gabe. Do we have another volunteer, possibly somebody who's on our Zoom call, if you'd like to answer one of our questions? Or somebody, oh, Andrea, can you hear me okay? Okay, so Andrea, here's your question. One of my family's favorite board games growing up was called Risk, and we used to spend a lot of time playing it. Do you have a favorite either board game or card game or sport that you did with your family or people who were significant in your life that created good memories? And can you share one of those with us?
Can everybody hear me first? We already went through it. If you don't want the rest of it,
Try again, Andrea. We can't hear you, and we think it might be on your end.
I might not be able to answer. Hold
We hear
on.
you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So back to the question. Risk was not my favorite game. I do remember playing charades, and my uncle was very, very, very good at it. Matter of fact, he named it when he lost. So I would be the person who would guess what he would say, but he would never put like the right words with the right statements. So we would never win. So he was naming all the time and we were losing. I never understood that, but it was just fun to be around family and friends and just having that moment to be silly, to relate to someone that was older than you and not have to speak speak adultese. I was about 7, so he was that person that just, could lay down his hair with no hair. It was like he could celebrate without winning. So he taught me how to just be in the moment. So you have to use that to get where you need to go. It's not worth worrying about if you like it or if you're winning. It's all about being in the moment at that moment. And I now yield my mic.
Thank you, Andrea. Do we have another volunteer for a third question, possibly one of our guests, if you'd like to participate? No pressure. Okay, yeah, come on up. Tell me your name again, I'm sorry. Jeffrey, okay. Jeffrey, here's your question. Risk and reward is a form of R&R, if you will. And another form of R&R is simply rest and relaxation. Can you share with us what you like to do for rest and relaxation and tell us why?
Well, sorry, I'm working on not using filler words. I I have not done a great job in the past at finding rest and just working and working and working. And lately, I've been really trying to take more rest and more time to just kind of relax. And I was actually kind of reading Genesis where even the seventh day God rested. So it's this thing of I have to find this time to rest. And so for me, what I like to do is lately I've been kind of reading a little bit more, but also just going outside because the weather is nice now and it's not 1,000 degrees. And I have been just sitting outside and reading. And then sometimes I go inside. Sometimes I'll play some video games with some of my friends or something like that. But I've never really been the biggest movie person. My roommates like to watch a lot of movies. And I don't know, like I like some movies, don't get me wrong, but that's not really my thing as much as I like to just kind of just relax and sit outside. And yeah, the weather's beautiful out now. So that's just where I find a lot of peace and then, prayer and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just check with Mr. Toastmaster if we have time for one more question, or do we need to move on? Move on. Okay. I'd like to thank all our participants. I'd like to ask for a timers report for each speaker. And also please let us know if each speaker qualified for the Table Topic Speaker Award this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are great table topics. Gabe, you were at 1 minute, 15 seconds. Andrea, you were at 1 minute, 16 seconds. And Jeffrey, you were at 1 minute, 14 seconds. So all of you were right together and you all qualified. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Great, thank you. Just a reminder to please vote if you are here. And that concludes the table topics part of our evening. I'd like to turn the program back over to our Toastmaster. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Toastmaster Eric. Congrats on crushing your first role. I thought you did an excellent job. And thank you for those who contributed. This is the epitome of risk and reward, is speaking impromptu. It can be very hard. It can be very daunting. But when you do and you crush it, it feels good. It's very gratifying. Now, I've spoken and redefined risk earlier. We've talked about how we use risk and reward in our everyday lives, how hopefully I've convinced you use it in all your decisions. We've talked about the importance of measuring or redescribing your greatest risk. But what about the greatest reward? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it comfort? I'd argue it's none of those. The greatest risk is pretty easy. It's the mirror image, or sorry, the greatest reward is very easy. It's the mirror image of the greatest risk. And that is, if we're not going to waste time or waste talent, it means we're going to do something with ourselves. It's becoming the best person we can be. I mean, Jimmy highlighted this in his speech about his parents. How do you become the best you? I always believe that I want to be just a little bit better tomorrow than I was yesterday. That's what it's all about. And I would argue that that's what we call self-actualization, right? What is that? It's your highest form, the best version of you. And I would argue that it transcends being happy. This is calling fulfillment. How many times do you know someone who they run a marathon, they get this runner's high and they achieve their goal and they're like, okay, what's next? That's the kind of passion of constantly striving for personal development and improvement. And that to me is the greatest reward. You approach life like that, and I guarantee your decision-making processes will change. Now you might ask, how do we improve? It's particularly here at Toastmasters. Well, we listen to our evaluators. We're going to move on to the next section of tonight's meeting. And this is where we take the time to not just come here and practice, but actually improve. What can we do better? And to help lead us in that effort, please help me welcome to the stage fellow Toastmaster Jamie Richardson.
Thank you, John. Toastmaster John. So as John said, I am the general evaluator for the evening, so I will be facilitating the evaluation portion of our meeting today. So in a moment, I'll introduce our individual evaluators. We have one in person and one on Zoom who will provide feedback on the prepared speeches. I'll also ask for the grammarian's report, which you heard about earlier, and then I will provide an evaluation of the overall meeting in terms of how it went. Let's start with our speaker review. Thoughtful, constructive, actionable feedback is a pillar of Toastmasters. And I think it's something that, David, you've instilled in all of us and others who've played the evaluator role. I think it's a responsibility that we take very seriously in this chapter and in this club. And so with that, not too much of a pressure, Vanessa, but I personally think Vanessa is one of our greatest evaluators at the club. And so let me introduce Toastmaster Vanessa, who will provide feedback on Jimmy Cruz's speech.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. Well, Jimmy, it is such a pleasure to evaluate your icebreaker this evening. And definitely takes a little bit of theme. I thought it was great that we had 2 icebreakers with our risk and reward theme of the evening, because everyone knows that their first speech is usually the scariest. It's something new, but we absolutely know that, and I have to start out, of course, we know that evaluators have to provide some positive and some feedback as far as how to improve in the future, but I have to start out with giving you a PM of praise for how well you did with your icebreaker. So to start out, one thing I noticed you did very well was just your overall.
Vanessa, I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you. It's just coming through really garbled.
Let me see if I can speak a little bit closer. I'm at work, so it could be that on my case.
Is that okay for folks on Zoom? No.
Okay. I can try it. Okay, do you want to do the next evaluator first, and I can try and fix it? I don't know which time we have.
All right, maybe what we'll do is we'll try to come back to you, Vanessa, and maybe try to log out and log back in and see if that works. Okay, thank you. All right, then let's move to our second evaluator. We'll come right back to Vanessa. So Sean.
Good evening, fellow Toastmaster and honored guests. Can everyone hear me okay, just in case? People on Zoom? Great, thank you. Again, I'm Sean, and I've been with Toastmaster for a few months now, and it's actually my second time being on site here. It feels great, actually. Tonight, I'm evaluating Cameron's speech. Actually, it's an icebreaker. Are you sure it's an icebreaker? Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen you a few times, like doing the competition for like what table topics, and like, and you've been as great as usual. So tonight you definitely nailed it. I guess I was looking at the metrics and for evaluating on the different factors, right? Like how comfortable you are, the clarity is, like they only give you like 0 to 5. I want to put a 6 on it. Like you really kind of, everything was kind of throughout, like off the chart. So I think I want to first point out is the way you tell, actually your story is a great story, right? It's got, like you're trying to tell a story about yourself, and then you kind of tell it the way that people can remember it, right? Like you try to structure the story in a way that flows naturally. First of all, you just point out you're a sports guy. That kind of just paint the picture in people's head that really immediately help people remember you. And then you kind of wrap up with story that you actually left the great picture that you just got on the field, and they actually found you and kind of right and mail it back to you. And people will not remember the Cameron really who left the picture on the floor. They actually remember the Cameron who actually were excited about football, and then also the lucky Cameron that really attract the great people who was as passionate as you and trying to help people out Hey, this is the way you actually communicate your story. And I guess it's really like the moral of the story to me, you went above and beyond. You're not only telling the story about yourself, you're also telling a story about other people, right? Positive people, passionate people, attract passionate people, and then they go extra mile to help you out. So, and also the way you're telling the story, like you're much better than me. I shouldn't be evaluating you right here. uh, it's I mean, you're really, really comfortable. I can't be as comfortable as you are, sure, even as I'm right now standing on stage, and you're really like aware of the audience, and then you kind of, it's very conversational. Like your story is almost like you're telling me the story just one-to-one. So everything is like hitting on the nail. Like it was super interesting to me, and I was forgetting I was evaluating you. I was like, oh no, it's already ended. And then I have to like, oh, I have to remember and then start kind of evaluating you afterwards. So that's how good your storytelling is. I guess I don't really have much for you to improve now because you're much better than me actually. I guess to kind of challenge you maybe on next time, because you'd be required to do a longer form speech, which is 5 to 7 minutes, you might be able to fit in another story and then try to find the connection between stories to create a more complicated structure and kind of maybe add depth to the story and leads to a common theme that maybe will help people remember the story more. Yeah, that's all. That's my feedback. I guess I went over time.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sean. All right, Vanessa, do we have you back? Let's see if it sounds okay.
Hello. Yes, hopefully. I'm on my phone now for audio, so
Yep.
does this work?
I think that sounds all right. And
Okay,
I'll turn it up a
perfect.
little bit.
Well, thank you so much for your patience, everyone. And thanks, Sean, for going ahead of me. I don't know what happened there, but back online now. So Jimmy, once again, so happy to evaluate your icebreaker. I got to start with that paean of praise for how well you did with several different things. And I made notes on some of the areas that you were really strong in with your icebreaker tonight. One of them was your overall conversational tone. I remember when I did my icebreaker, I think I brought up some note cards to the podium and I memorized a lot of things. So I was kind of over practicing it. And what I loved about your delivery was that it really felt like you were just having a conversation with the audience. It didn't feel as though you had memorized every word and you were just regurgitating what you'd memorized. And that's what I love about Toastmasters, is that it's actually a really safe space for people to practice just off the cuff or things they maybe don't completely memorize by heart, but they have all the concepts down and they're just sharing from the heart. And that's exactly what you did for us tonight. It's that safe space and you're just taking that risk, as our Toastmaster of the evening would say, taking that risk to not have everything perfectly memorized. And I think the result was just this very conversational, really appealing stage presence that you brought. And to go along with that, one thing I loved about your delivery was your use of storytelling and imagery. This is something that I especially love, having really loved reading creative fiction books growing up. And I love it when speakers will bring in imagery. For instance, you talked about your parents and how they were educated and how they worked so hard at their different jobs. We learned about your mom and how she worked at the military and your dad and his business. And then we heard more about your personal story, about how you were debating about whether to go to college, and all those little details came together to give us a real taste of who you are as a person. So loved your delivery overall. And in terms of things to work on for the future, one thing I noticed is I kind of was losing the connection between the theme of the product and destiny that you brought up at the very beginning of your speech, and then your two stories about your parents and about yourself. And I was thinking about, it's tricky to do that in a speech, but that's something you could work on for a future speech, maybe weaving in those same themes, but trying to really clearly walk the audience through what are the connections between the themes and your stories. But I love your stories, so please keep them coming. And I'm really excited to hear your next speech. And I'll turn it back over to our general evaluator.
All right, thank you, Toastmaster Vanessa. Great feedback as always from you and Toastmaster Sean as well. I would like to ask for a timers report for our evaluators.
Yeah, so great job, both of you. You were both close to the time. Vanessa, you were at 2 minutes, 58 seconds, so you qualified. Sean, you were a little bit over at 4 minutes and 8 seconds, so you don't qualify, but great evaluation. Back to you, Toastmaster.
All right, well, thank you. And so for our ballot, I think we have one qualifying evaluator. So Ballot Counter will just award that certificate to Vanessa at the end. All right, I'd now like to ask for the grammarians report. So Toastmaster Lon.
Thank you. This is the fun part. Jamie, you had 2 David had 4 and 1 and. For the speakers for tonight, no, that's not the speakers. John, so John 0. That was amazing. I was like literally listening. I was like, there's no way, but yeah, he had 0. Julian, you had 3 Jimmy, you had 4 but awesome job on your icebreaker. Really enjoyed it. Cameron, 1 enjoyed yours as well. Very conversational. Eric, you had 10 and 1 and, but good try trying to use the words of the day, and I don't think anyone used it. Probably it was a bad choice of a word, but we'll try again next time. The first table topic speaker, which I didn't get your name, you had 3 Andre or Andrea. You had a few, so, and 1 you know. Jeffrey, you had 1 and 1 you know. I'm saying 2. Sean, you had 4 2 so, 8 like, and a few I guess. Vanessa, 2 Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lon. All right, we're running a little long, so I'm going to try to get through an overall evaluation relatively quickly. But I don't want that to diminish what I think has been a fantastic meeting. So thank you, Toastmaster John, for facilitating a great meeting. Some of the specifics from an administration perspective, we started on time. Everything worked from a technology perspective. So thank you, David, as always, President, for making that possible. I loved hearing from our guests. We've got a number of guests here, and I thought it brought a great energy. This is by far the most people I've had in person since I joined this particular Toastmasters Club, and it feels great to be up here and be able to really test our public speaking in front of an audience. So thank you all for being here as well. In terms of our Toastmaster, I thought the theme was fantastic. I love the energy at the beginning in terms of bringing the audience into the conversation and getting people motivated and excited, getting them empowered, right? There was a challenge in there, I think, for us to think differently about how we approach risk and reward, which I thought was great, and I think set the tone. I'll talk about that in a second. I love the examples. The charitable event and meeting your wife was fantastic. The theme of risk and reward, right? So how we reframe that, and then the idea of the reward being the mirror image of risk, I think was a really evocative image as well. It's going to stick with me for a while. So I thought that was fantastic as well. The best thing I can say about the theme is that it led into great table topics conversations, right? So whether it was Gabe or Andrea or Jeffrey, I thought everybody had great examples of using that context, and fantastic job as everyone, or as John already said, to you, Eric, for your first role. And I think that's a kudos again to the club that we have new members willing to step into roles and play that role as quickly as they do to help facilitate a great meeting. Again, great job from our evaluators. And with that, I will turn it back to our Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamie. Gotta set this up for shorter people. I know we're running a little bit late. What I want to leave an impression with you before I'm going to bring up our Toastmaster and residing president, David Jones, to give us the exciting news of our ballot winners. But I am going to turn it over to him to close out the meeting. But before I do, I just want to say, I hope I left one impression upon you that you can view risk and reward differently. And for those that perhaps are guests or new members, and you're thinking about your own risk reward, I hope you saw some of the inspiration of people attempting speeches for their first times, and maybe not always their first time for some of those. But at the end of the day, there is true gratification on trying something that you are uncomfortable with or that you fear. And I hope this inspires you to do so. So please consider signing up for roles if you're new members. And also, if you're guests, consider joining. I'm going to turn things over to our current president and fellow Toastmaster, David Jones. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John. It was a great theme, and he always brings great energy to the meeting, so I appreciate him being here tonight. As you saw tonight, Vanessa had some technical difficulties, and Sean went over time. But this is a place to do that. This is a place to make mistakes or have technical issues. So when we're at work, we know how to handle them and what to do. So even though it looks like we have some problems, it's a great place to do it. We've had a lot of problems with our technology here in the past, and we've learned, but it's something that makes you stronger at work or in front of your friends. So it's we don't really have any failures here. We just have learning experiences. Now for the ballot counter, the reason we do the ballots and try to pick their favorite speaker of the night is just one more role. It's something that usually a ballot counter is going to come up here and announce the winners, and it's just one more role for you to fill. I just happen to do it tonight because we haven't done it for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and announce our favorite people. I hate to say best, even though they say best on here. It's just our favorite speakers for the night. And our favorite table topic for the night was Gabe. Is that Gabe? Congratulations. And by default, because he went over time a little bit, Sean, so our best evaluator is Vanessa. Congratulations, Vanessa. And our icebreaker for tonight. Now, Cameron is a veteran here, but every time you start in new pathways, you have to do your icebreaker. So this was probably his second or third icebreaker he's done over time, but you have to do it every time. So, so Jimmy, you get favorite icebreaker. Oh, that's not the right one. Here we go. Icebreaker for you. Cameron doesn't want one because he has one. He said, don't give me another one. But he did win best speaker of the night. So you are going to get your best speaker award here. Here you go. Perfect. And since we are over on time, we do try to keep the time. We try to value your time very much. So we're going to go ahead and close out the meeting. We usually like to talk to our guests and everything before we go, and we can talk to you afterwards. But for the sake of the meeting, we're going to go ahead and close out the meeting. And I hope to see everybody next week. And good night. Good night, everybody on online.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.